So this video is going to be about doing long division. We really need to learn how to do long division to end up dividing decimals, which is kind of the main reason why I'm teaching it right now. So if we have 492 divided by 3, I would set it up like this. 492 divided by 3. Okay, so what I'm first going to do is I'm going to look at the 3 and the 4. And I'm going to ask myself, what would I multiply 3 by to get close to 4 or at 4? So I know that 3 times 1 gives me 3, so that's pretty close to 4. I also know that 3 times 2 gives me 6, and that's over 4, so I can't do 3 times 2. So I know that 3 times 1 gives me 3, so I'm going to put a 1 up here. Now, when I do 3 times 1, I get 3, so I'm going to subtract 3 from my 4. 4 minus 3 gives me 1. Now my next step is to then drop down my 9. Now, my next step is to look at the 3 and look at the 19. How many 3's does it take to get me to 19? Or what can I multiply 3 by to get close to or at 19? Well, I know that 3 times 4 gives me 12, so I'm getting there. 3 times 5 gives me 15, I'm closer. 3 times 6 gives me 18, which is super close. 3 times 7 is 21, which is too far. So I'm going to go down 1, back to 6, and I know that 3 times 6 gives me 18. So I'm going to write my 6 up here, and I'm going to subtract 18, which gives me 1. Now I have to bring down my last digit, which is 2, and I'm left with 12. Now I have to look at the 3 and the 12. What can I multiply 3 by to get close to or at 12? So I know 3 times 3 is 9. Well, I'm close. But 3 times 4 gives me 12. So I'm going to put my 4 up here, and I'm going to subtract 12. Now I'm left with 0. I also know that I have no digits left, so I'd have nothing else to drop down, and I have 0 left over. So my answer is 164. So 492 divided by 3 equals 164. Now I'm going to do a different division problem. If I have 4,465 divided by 6, I would write it like this. Okay, so now I'm looking at that first digit. I've got 6 here and 4 here. Now, how many 6's would it take to get to 4? Well, I know that 6 times 1 gives me 6, and that's already too many. So what I can do is I can either leave it blank or I can put a 0 above the 4. I know that 6 times 0 gives me 0, so I'm going to subtract 0. I'm left with 4. And I'm going to bring down that digit, which is another 4. So now I'm at 44. So I say to myself, what can I multiply 6 by to get close to or at 44? Well, I know immediately that 6 times 6 is 36. I'm getting there. 6 times 7 is 42, so I'm even closer. 6 times 8 is 48, but that's too much, so I can do 6 times 7 gives me 42. So I now subtract 42. I have 2 left over. I now drop that 6 down. I have 26. So I ask myself again, 6 times what number can get me close to or at 26? I know that 6 times 4 gives me 24. 6 times 5 gives me 30, and that's too much. So I'm going to put a 4 up here. 6 times 4 is 24, so I subtract 24. I'm left with 2, and I bring down the 5. So 6 times what number gets me close to or at 25? And once again, I know that 6 times 4 gets me 24, so I can subtract 24. I'm left with 1. So I have 1 left over, and I have no more digits to bring down. So when we're dividing a whole number by a whole number, we are now going to have a remainder of 1. So my answer is going to be 744 with a remainder of 1. and that is going to be my answer for 4,465 divided by 6. This is kind of the step-by-step way that we do long division. So here's kind of the step-by-step what I'm teaching the students. So our first step is going to be divide, which is how many times can 6 go into 4, which is what we did previously, or how many groups of 6 go into 4. So that's our division part. Then our next step is the multiply part, which is when we took our 6 and multiplied it by 0 and put our 0 down here. Our next part is then subtract, which is when we took 4 and we subtracted 0 from that. Then our next step was to bring down the number, which is when we brought down that 4. Okay, and then once we do that, we just repeat the same steps. And that is kind of the step-by-step process that I will be using during class to teach the students long division.